by Rattlesnake, and it was his line and his rod. So it was his knot, but I felt bad enough. I bought him a new fly line. It's nothing.
I don't know. I don't know whose knot it was, but who's ever failed miserably.
What I do on mine is
We're on.
I tie a bimini in the backing.
Yeah.
Bimini loop,
Yeah. Yeah.
And then on the other end, if it doesn't come with a finished loop knot, I'll take a bigger pair of nail knot tires, and I'll tie the first nail knot, and I'll make the loop and pull it back through. So I'll have a loop, and I loop down the nail knot where it comes together, and I do that 3 times.
Yeah.
And I put plyo flex on it. These are some of the Jersey guys taught me many years ago, and that's never failed. That setup. But if you use, I have some braided line on one rod, it could cut right through the fly line. There's so much pressure on it,
Yeah.
Braided backing.
Well, this was. I had just boated a probably 12, 13 pound alligator, really nice one, and this one was even better than that. And anyway, I would have liked to have touched him, but that's all right.
Was it a dry line?
Pardon me?
A dry fly line?
I still didn't hear you.
Dry line or intermediate?
No, it was a. I think it was a floating line. Yeah, I don't think because they were up on top. We weren't. No, it was a floating line. Yeah.
Well, that's always a shame.
I'm hoping it was an old one.
Exactly. A really old line. You didn't get that for your people to make necklaces out of, right? You didn't get him back.
Right. That's a really small operation out there in Missoula.
Have you seen it?
Pardon?
Have you been out there?
I was there this summer, and I took a bunch of. I think I took 35 lines, and I found they're in a building in downtown Missoula on about the 4th floor in an old building in a little small office. I wasn't even sure there was anybody there. And there actually was a gal in there, and she heard me knock, and very small office, and she was totally surrounded by old fly lines and all the stuff they're making. And
It did look like they had a nice amount of material to go.
yeah, oh yeah, a ton of stuff. Yeah, and I brought some stuff back with me that whenever we start having meetings again, then I'll, or whenever I manage to get down there, which probably ain't going to be till the end of January, I'll bring it. You guys start?
Well, the water just turned 74. It was really dirty. And I was out there today, and I saw one pod, and there was some mackerel, but it wasn't ideal. Big east wind blowing. So the minute you got offshore, it was pretty choppy, but there wasn't much of a swell. So let me see what the wind is doing the next couple of days. It's like 13 tomorrow, east northeast, and then Saturdays gets up to 14. But it's northeast, so it's not perfect.
Well, it blew about 25 here today.
And Sunday is 12 something. See, on Monday it gets down to 9. I'm sure Ken will get boats on Monday. Get a boat on Monday. And then Tuesday around 10. Wednesday's even better. And then I think we got a blow coming. No, Thursday's nothing. Looks like it starts next Friday. It's light wind, but it's north. I thought we were having some sort of front or something. We've had a couple of weeks of really nasty weather with that storm and just wind, a lot of wind. But, I don't know if it's usually like this.
we finally got all our leaves down and taken care of, and we're now leaf free here, which is, that's a lot
Ethan,
of, that's a lot of work up here.
oh yeah. Ethan, how do you define that those 3 lines again?
So we're gonna do it when I do the,
Oh, you're gonna set it up?
once I do the screen share. So it will put it over there on the right side,
Oh, I see it, yeah.
and then you'll have the dots and dashes. Then you just choose the one
One day.
little thing that gets rid of them.
Yeah, thank you.
So we'll walk everybody through that once we get some more folks on.
Got 5 board members. That's pretty impressive.
Jay, did you go out with, you were out today with,
I went out on a kind of a boys' lunch trip, and we just went out there and I threw one spinner out on the boat and had a look on South Longboat. The birds were very spread out and there were not a lot of fish crashing, but they were there. I mean, there were mackerel there and I saw one pot of Albies for sure. And Johnny Walker, who ended up coming into dry dock to eat lunch, yeah, he uses greenbacks live bait. They were chumming and he got an Albie on that they lost. So they're here. It's just a matter of the conditions getting a little better. I mean, inshore you could have used a kayak. I mean, it was really flat. But once you got
and I was on Turtle this morning because Ken talked about Turtle having a bunch of birds on it. And this morning was terrible.
was there anything going on? Because I think it could have been a misidentification of what that guy caught in his cast net, but whatever.
Well, no, but we went at a low tide in the morning and that was not good, but the beach has changed dramatically because of Eta. And I suspect, and I just predict, just looking at the beach and having some experience in beach dynamics, that next year Turtle Beach is going to improve a whole lot. Because a lot of that sand that was dumped a couple of years ago is gone. And the whole...
They just finished that renourishment project. We had that storm. I'm wondering what that looks like. Renourishment, what a word.
At Lido? You're talking about one Lido or?
I think it was on Lido, right? Weren't they
Yeah.
dragging out a big?
Were they done?
They just said on the news yesterday, they were almost finished. And then I saw the tugboat today gassing up, but we didn't go out Big Pass. So I'm not sure what they were doing. They said they were just pulling they were done. I did see a bunch of sand and a bulldozer and stuff. So maybe they didn't lose all their stuff.
Well, if you can pump it from somewhere, you can move a lot of sand very fast.
Yeah. I met this guy at a racetrack the other day. I had to give him some flies. It was like a drug deal. It's very strange. You recall that, Bob?
Yeah, I recall
I can't even hear. Bob's your audio on?
Yeah, I think it is.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
It is, Bob.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
It'll be nice if the wind would stop blowing for a day or two.
Well, then we were just looking at it. And it's going to get better. Pretty much, I mean, Sundays 12, 13, Mondays 9 and 10, Tuesdays 8, 9, 10, Wednesday. I mean, you're going to have wind. It's just not going to be ridiculous. It says next Thursday low and next Friday low. There was not a swell out there today, which was nice. It wasn't really too rocky up and down, But once you got inshore with the east wind, it was flat, it was kayakable. and there weren't waves on the beach, so, you know, with no swell, it could have probably launched. It might have been a, you know, for
It could have
the amount
launched.
of fish, birds that were there, it probably wasn't worth it, but
Yeah, you could have launched a kayak today.
yeah, on the beach, right?
Yeah.
Now, did you see fish? Did you see birds anywhere at Turtle?
Well, very few. Ken said he saw a bunch of them working on the south end of Turtle. That's where I went this morning. I normally start off at the north end. And there were a few pelicans feeding, but they were out at the bar. Len, he just waited out to the bar, but he didn't get anything either. You know, we were out there for about an hour and a half, 2 hours and nothing. So we quit.
Len likes getting wet.
Yes, he does.
Maybe tomorrow I'll go with the binoculars down to Albie Road in Nokomis, and because that's where we last left them a couple of weeks ago, and check the south. And maybe somebody can look Buttonwood. Who knows a good joke? Did Ken call you, Ethan?
No. Was he supposed to?
I don't know what he's doing. He can't do it himself. He has to have Melanie do it.
He's in California.
No, he didn't go.
Oh, I thought he did. Okay, I
No,
talked to him last week. He was leaving Friday.
His daughter nixed it
Gotcha.
because of the rising COVID cases.
Gotcha. Probably smart.
There's Melanie.
You see Melanie show up?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, the other club was doing their Andy Mill thing tonight, and they invited me. And I asked them to record it. I don't know if they're going to, but that would be nice.
Would be.
Maybe we should all sign off and go over there.
Okay. And come back. I don't think that's a good idea at this stage.
Not with the lineup we have tonight.
Yeah, true. Superstars of rock without Mick.
Is Mick on? No.
No, he's not coming.
Ken is not in California.
No, I'm not, unfortunately. Yeah, we had to cancel the trip with the COVID crap that's going on. We had a powwow with our daughter and son-in-law, and they thought it best not to make the trip because COVID out there is pretty bad, and the governor was talking about closing down the state. So I think as we look at it now, as disappointed as we are, we made the right decision, you know? So.
Yeah, you would have been stuck in your hotel room.
Yeah, we would have had a quarantine for 14 days. We were going to be out there a month, but we would have given up half of it just to sit in the hotel room and watch TV and read.
Maybe
What makes you think we'd let you back?
Thanksgiving with the governor.
Yeah.
You could just get a maritime letter saying that you're essential to the workforce.
That's right. That's it.
If you work in the marine industry, just travel with that letter. But I know I had some colleagues that were supposed to go out to California, and they had to take the COVID test before they walked into the shipyard.
Yeah. Yeah, we were going to get tested here and then we had reservations to get tested out at Stanford University at the medical center with like 4 days after we got there. So we would have still had to quarantine a little bit, but we thought, 4 or 5 days and then we'd be able to see the kids and stuff, but not. Not good. That's okay. I guess I'll just be able to get a little fishing. Wish this damn wind would stop though.
Quit whining.
Yeah.
You could be in Indiana, Ken.
Are you ice fishing yet?
Not yet, but it was 30 2 days ago when I let the dog out in the morning. So
Oof. I don't miss that.
65 today, so not too bad.
Okay, not terrible.
Yeah.
How are we doing, Ethan, on numbers?
We got 19 in the room right now. I think we've kind of slowed down on adding folks, so I think might
Give me a
as well go
minute,
ahead and
Ethan.
get going. You need a minute?
Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead and eat dinner. Anybody caught any fish?
I caught a couple of bass. So JT, myself, and Len went into the little pond west of Benderson
Mm-hmm.
a couple of days ago, and we got some bass. JT, I think you got a bass or two or three, whatever, right? Oh, do we lose him?
He's absent.
Uh-huh.
He stepped away
Yeah,
from me.
I don't know if you can hear. Can you hear me, Ethan?
Yep.
Yeah, I was on the beach 3 nights ago and I probably caught 12, 15 small ladyfish, 3 or 4 small jacks, and one Spanish mackerel.
Which beach?
You know, off the beach. Yeah,
Which one?
After the storm?
between Sharky's and Venice, the Venice public beach.
Okay.
Was that after the storm? After Etta came
Yes,
through?
it was like 3 nights ago.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's good to know.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
but so they were feeding. Actually, the birds were feeding on. Look to me like little glass minnows. The egrets were actually on shore, kind of catching them. There was like a little bit of a swell, it's a little sandbar where this culvert came out into the Gulf, and so they were kind of working that, and so I just kind of worked that little bar on the side, and about 45 minutes or an hour before sunset.
Mm-hmm.
So they weren't very big fish. I mean, I'm talking 10 and 12 inch ladyfish, 6 and 7 inch jacks. I did catch maybe a 14 inch Spanish mackerel, but it was fun.
Yeah.
Fun to catch something.
They all count.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It was fun.
Al, did you go down to Turtle today?
Yeah, we were at the south end and we were fishing, I guess, about 2 hours, nothing. This
Nothing.
morning at the low tide. We should have waited till the afternoon. in my
Yeah.
opinion.
More water in there. Yeah,
Yeah.
I walked Turtle Beach yesterday, and there was a lot of bird activity, and there is a lot of bait in that trough.
Yeah.
You got like a change of the beach where after the storm, or maybe it's happened prior to the storm, there's a sandbar about maybe 20 to 25 yards off the shoreline, and there's a trough between, and there was a lot of bait in there.
Yeah,
But-
that bar was above sea level when we were fishing.
Oh, really?
And the 3 of us were there fishing, and Len walked out and fished from the bar. In none of us got a nibble on anything.
Okay.
So we
Yeah.
just quit, and we should have just waited for the tide, or just waited till the afternoon. It was dead low tide, but
Hey,
yes,
Ethan.
sunrise.
Ethan, can the 3 people that just have their names up there, can they see us? Or they like listening on the radio?
Yeah, they can see us.
Okay.
Do I see Rick's smiling face there?
Yep.
Hey, Rick, how are you?
Rick, did you fish
Rick?
today?
Excuse me?
Did you fish today?
No, I didn't.
Uh,
I stood on the
Oh
shore.
my God, there's Rick.
Hey, Mike. How you doing?
I'm good.
I know that guy.
He's freezing his tush off, he said.
Okay.
Yesterday, today was okay.
When you coming back down, Mike?
We not sure. We're dealing with some unexpected health issues up
Ooh.
here. So,
Oh, well, good luck with that.
yeah, well, we'll hopefully be there the end of January, early February, maybe. We'll
All
see.
right, good deal, good deal. Rick, have you seen any Albies? You probably haven't been offshore.
I haven't in the last week or so, and I haven't seen a lot. I've seen only a few small pods up and down, and we've only caught one and had another hookup. They've been pretty thin. That's off of Sarasota.
Right.
Now, a month ago, up in the ship channel,
Mhm.
they were more plentiful, and the couple of days that I tried to run across there were not good days to do it, leaving from Manatee County. So I didn't make it over there, but it typically from now until Christmas, like Thanksgiving till Christmas, should be prime here. And the water's just now dropped to 75. So
It's down to 75 now after this cold front. Good. All
yeah.
right.
Now I'm getting triple tail, small ones so far, and like I said, the Albies have been thin for me. The ones I did see were kind of mixed with mackerel that were over a broad area, and they were kind of up and down and gone real quick and not showing a lot of themselves.
Yeah.
All right, you want to get started, Ethan?
All right, guys, we're going to get started this evening. Thank you all for coming out. One small little housekeeping thing. We're going to go through a little practice here. I'm going to share my screen with everyone. And if you go up to the right corner, you've got on the right side of your screen, you should have a bar with some faces on it. Some you may or may not recognize. If you hit click on the first little bar, that'll minimize your view, and you'll be able to see the screen when we get going with the presentation a little bit better. So if you want to do that, that'd be great. And I'm going to stop sharing again here for a moment. And go.
Was everybody able to see the heading on that?
Yes,
I'm not sure what you're talking about.
I was.
Yeah.
Well, let's try to fly, and then before we get to the PowerPoint, we can go over it again.
Okay.
All right. So I don't even know the name of this fly, and someone told me it a couple of years ago. You know, we're pretty most of the time imitating glass minnows. So Puglisi came out with some funky hair brushes. This is a version of it where I actually glue little eyes on there. And then I got even lazier and I started using the Puglisi Game Changer eyes that look like this. They tie on like a Clouser eye. And the fly, this one's even a little smaller. And what you tie them with is the Puglisi EP brush. It's called a minnow head, and the one I use is 2.5, but this is for purposes, this is a 1.5, but I'm going to use the 2.5. It's a little longer. Everyone see that? All right, so you want to use a strong hook for Albies. I didn't have a lot of them around. I just grabbed a 4 that Jim had sold me the other day, a Mustad, but it seems tough enough to do the job. And these things come in long wands, like with metal in the middle. Sometimes I even trim them down with a little scissor to start. So I'm going to put a Game Changer eye on first, and then I'm going to put the minnow material on the back and just wind it forward and gently pull the hairs back as I go. And then you may want to trim at the end. It's one of the reasons I like this fly is it's super simple, and you can tie a bunch of them in just a few minutes. They may have smaller Game Changer eyes, so I'll just figure eight this onto the front as best I can, because you want these eyes up front. Can you all see that? Yeah. And I use the helicopter mode underneath it, which runs parallel to the hook, I guess. And then I also use figure 8s. And with the clouser eyes, what I learned with my Jersey group is if you go wind back a little bit like that, and then come over and then do the helicopter, it really tightens it up. And also you want to use, you know, some Danville 210 denier or something really strong. So I do at least 3 of these way back, over, and then helicopter. And that usually tightens things up really nicely. I don't bother with the glue on most of my clousers. All right, so there's the eyes, all right? That's on there pretty good. I'll wind to the back, a little past the hook gap, whatever you call that thing. And when you start with this fly, with this material, it has the metal there at the end, so you don't really need to have to pull any of the hairs off. If I cut this in the middle, you got to kind of pull some hairs off to get back to the wire. I'm not sure it matters if you, which way you tie this thing, or whether it lays concave or like a feather, you know? So I'll just whack the actual metal wire on there. And then trim that. And then I'll move the thread up to the front. And I'll start winding the brush on. And as I wind, I pull back try to pull back all the hair without hooking my finger too many times. Now, I don't claim to be a Craig Smothers either, so if this comes out shitty, don't blame me. Never tied for anybody. All right, so you see it's starting to form a body, kind of catching some of the hairs, which isn't good. But you know, our glass minnows are pretty iridescent. Some of them have a little pink or brown in them. This is strictly just a white, sparkly kind of fly. I think it's coming together. Can y'all see that pretty good?
Yeah.
I might come back one wrap. Well, now I'm going to try to tie this thing off. You see how fast that went, right? It was just like, you know, it's like a 2-minute fly. And then you'll get something left over like that. So basically you just whip finish and you're done, and do a little, you know, trimming. When it's wet, it's has a thinner profile than you're seeing right now. It just looks a little peanut bunkerish. I started using, Preston has this little razor blade as a wooden handle thing, and it's a lot quicker than using the scissor half the time. So I'll take the vise away. Rick, is there a name for this fly? Rick? Oh, he's muted probably.
Yeah, he's muted.
Oh, great. I caught the thing on there.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
If there is, I don't know what the name is.
So there's
it looks like a pretty good glass minnow.
There's a pretty, you know, then I would just go around and trim off all the things that don't make sense to keep the body, you know, try to keep the body as thin as possible. And any errant hairs, because they don't lay completely flat. And voila, he got one tied. And what I found with Albies, sometimes, like Rick taught us about some snog, which we'll see later. Sometimes they're on the weirdest things, and they just get picky sometimes. Other times they're blasting bait so hard you could throw a straw in there on a hook, and I think they'd eat it. So well, that's kind of the finished product. Now the other thing you can do is use the little stick-on eyes. This one has a little slimmer profile, you know, with that loom glue. And I think the eye size is a little better, don't you, Rick, on that than the one
Yeah.
than this other one? This
Yeah.
eye's pretty good. They might make those EPIs smaller, which I would get a pack for sure. All right, so that's that. Any questions, concerns?
Looks good.
You can get that at the compound. Let's see, we have it. I don't know if Tim's got any at CB's. The compound's probably the best stock fly shop for our purposes around here now that Westwall's out. And Economy Tackle has some things, but not a ton of stuff. They're probably 90% conventional gear.
JT, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Two things. One is, do you use a EP brush at all?
Yeah, that's what that is, a minnow brush, 2.5.
No. I'm talking about there's a spike thing, a finger brush to.
Oh, you could definitely use a brush. You could use any comb or brush to pull it back and make it a little nicer. I thought of that earlier, but
yeah,
like I said,
that smooths out that material. Then when you trim it, it stays, pretty much where you want it. The other thing I was going to mention is you were talking about, maybe the size of the eyes. For those that would be tying that pattern, if you went to a bigger size hook and tied a little bit more of a bigger profile, those big eyes actually would imitate pilchard eyes pretty well. When I was mentioning about being out in walking Turtle Beach yesterday, there was a gentleman that was cast netting for bait, and he obviously, some of them were on the sand when he got him after he got him in the bucket. Some stayed that died, and I walked over and they were definitely scaled sardines or pilchards, and they have a pretty good size eye on them. So I think that same pattern you showed could be used for pilchards as well as glass minnows or the smaller of the baits.
Yeah, the only thing is I like to put a little green in my pilcher. I would probably get a marker out and do the back or something to make it look a little more realistic.
Okay.
While we're talking about the fly shops real quick, we're going to do our annual Christmas fly shop caravan this year. We'll not have West Wall since he's currently not functioning. And it'll make things a lot easier for us. We'll go from CB's to Economy Tackle and then end up over at the compound. And with COVID and all, we're going to do it probably in our own cars unless you're really close to somebody and know they don't have it and trust them. And we'll socially distance. It works for me because I make a list for my wife and then I buy things for my friends. The fly shop owners are really appreciative of when we did this last year, supporting them who support us. I think it's December 4th. There'll be an actual thing in the newsletter and a separate email the week before. So you might want to spread that news.
Hey Jay, what's the story with Westwall?
He went under, I guess.
Really? I missed that whole thing. When did that happen?
Oh,
Go.
2 months back?
No longer.
Really? 3 months?
I think it was April or May. It was early.
Yeah, I think he has all his stuff in a storage shed somewhere and he's just guiding right now.
Well, he's still guiding and he's going to be presenting in January, so y'all can ask him all about it.
Okay.
By the way, Compound has a Black Friday sale this Friday. So whatever you buy, you get 50% in Compound cash back.
We should ask him to do that on our caravan. See what he says. They do usually extend a little extra discount the day we win, I think.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think all three owners have been really cool to me. Lydia at CB's is really nice, and Jacob's awesome. And the guy I don't really know at Economy. Al, what's his story? The fellow owner, because we usually deal with Ashley.
Let me see, there's a
I don't
couple.
remember his name.
I forget their name. There's one guy that's been there forever, and he was a club member.
Yeah, but he's not the owner.
I don't know the owner. I'm sorry.
Okay.
It's
All right,
Mark.
Ethan, you want to move
Goodwin.
ahead?
What's that?
I said, Ethan, do you want to move ahead to the presentation?
I'm ready.
Let's go over that one thing again.
All right, guys. Gals, you've got the screen share here, and up in the right, on the right side, you should have some people's faces. And it should
Mine
be
got
about
rid of
5
that.
little boxes. At the top of that bar, there is a tick, a little box, 2 ticks, and then a Rubik's Cube type deal. If you click on the one on the far left, that'll hide everybody.
On top, the one bar.
The one bar on top, and then we will begin our slideshow.
Now, do you want to leave it open to questions during, Ethan, or after?
Let's wait on questions until we get a little bit into it. So if you could go ahead and begin your presentation.
All right. Is Ken unmuted?
Yeah, I believe. Can you hear me?
Yeah, maybe leave Rick unmuted too, because he's got
Yeah.
more experience than both of us. Okay, next. Well, there's an intrepid angler. Next. All right, here's a group of our guys. Bob Cameron, Ken in the bottom. Looks like Ken fighting a fish. If you look in the far and the one where Ken's fighting the fish, you can see some Albies blowing up there 100 yards away or so. These are nice conditions where it's really not completely flat, glass-like, but easy to maneuver in. And that's, of course, Mr. Sam there in the middle. Next. Next. All right. So right now we're starting to get into the fall season here for us. There is a lot of bait out there. I did catch a couple a few weeks ago when the water was warm, but with the storms and all that, I think it's, and as Rick said, the temperatures just dropping into their sweet spot where they like 68 to 75, something like that. And when the bait leaves, well, that makes sense. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, Rick. We also see them on the return in February? Sometime?
We do, but this seems like the spring bite is never as good as the fall for me. But yes, we do get them on the other end.
Now, if you look by where it says mid to upper 70s to the left, you see that boat, that troller. Below that, you can see where the water is brown with bait. It's completely
Bait ball.
brown. That's a bait ball with Albies in it, and that's usually glass minnows when we see that thick stuff.
That's usually when it's good, is when it's glass minnows and they're balled up like that.
Cool. Next slide, please.
Keep in mind also that the dates that were listed there are obviously a seasonal thing, that they change based on weather patterns. For example, this year, Rick, correct me if I'm wrong, but it was such a warm summer that there weren't really any fish probably around, or very few in September. And as it was said before, Rick said that probably from Thanksgiving to Christmas may be like gangbusters, because the water will be at the right temp. So every year it can change, and also conditions of the water can change it. For example, the last couple of years, not last year, but the two before with the red tide, there was virtually no albies to be found here.
Yeah, they'll bypass us sometimes for things like red tide and or I've seen the water temperature drop so rapidly, they're gone.
And another point Rick made earlier is that when they do show up, the first place they show up is in the St. Pete shipping channel, which Mick and I learned is not the best place to kayak. But
Yeah.
if you have a boat and you can launch over in St. Pete, a little shorter, some people leave from the Rattlesnake area. Preston used to go across, and it can be really snotty getting across there.
Yeah, I tried it twice this season already and changed my mind both times.
Okay, next slide, please. There's a picture of our area. Next. Ken, you want to do any of this?
Oh, well, you're doing a great job.
I'll continue to blab on if you want.
Well, that's me driving the boat, I believe. So,
all right, while Ken's driving, I'll talk.
yeah,
I'll
drive.
Somebody wrote on the Mangrove Coast Facebook page the other day, did you get those in the bay? And I've never seen one in the bay. In Jersey, I've seen them come in their inlets and stuff, but most of these are just off our beaches. Sometimes right up on the sand, which is nice. But mostly they're either, well, I like to kayak fish for them. So I like to see them, within 200 yards or, the first row of crab buoys, which is out maybe a quarter of a mile. And a lot of times they'll hit that one crab buoy area and then they're gone. And then 10 minutes later, they're back at the same area. I've actually tied off to one buoy when I got tired of paddling after them, and they would just keep returning. And I've scored a lot of fish that way. I know that Johnny Walker fishes the reefs a lot, and they tend to hang out there. I caught 4 or 5 one day when they weren't even showing. There was just, fish on the screen. The other place that Rick likes a lot is Point of Rocks, and out from there, they tend to congregate. Uh-oh.
You're right. Keep going.
A quick sidebar on that is talk about how close they can come inshore. My wife, Melanie, was doing a program with Mode Education 3 days ago. And she was down at Turtle Beach with the kids. And there was a gentleman that was throwing a cast net out for bait and having fun and whatever. And he actually pulled in 2 albies in his net from a cast net. They couldn't have been much more than, 15, 20 feet off of the beach line. So that if the bait is in there, they'll come in that tight. And Jacob from the compound told me that he caught about 7 or 8 during that stretch where JT was talking about, where he had gone out in his kayak and caught a couple of albies. The fish were in at that point, and he caught 7 or 8 albies. And he said he could have cast. He was in a boat, but he said he was close enough to the shoreline that if he was on shore, he could have cast to those fish. So,
yeah, but I think that's the rare thing versus
rare, but
generally
it happen.
You want to be in a boat or a kayak.
Ideally, correct.
You don't want to launch your kayak in big waves either. That can be dangerous. Next slide, please. Okay, so there's a picture on the right of typical glass minnows, what they look like. In the center, you've got albies actually turning sideways, blasting through bait. These are various blitzes. One thing to notice, sometimes you'll cast into a bunch of birds and you'll either hook a bird or it'll get lined. Maybe carry a little towel with you and just strip the bird in, try to hold its wings and get it untangled, because if you look at the top picture on the left, it's hard not to line a bird casting into that stuff. I've seen one get killed like that, and that's the last thing you want to happen. Like I said, the bait size does matter a lot of times. And another thing is these Albies are moving so fast that you'll be stripping, and sometimes they'll grab your fly, eat it and spit it within like a quarter of a second. So you have to be really attentive to what's going on. You'll feel like, what was that? Oh, and it's gone. The other thing I learned is from North Carolina is don't run and gun with the boat like a maniac up to the fish. You can do it at distance, but then when you get closer, you got to slow down and at best throw it into neutral and just kill the engine if you can, if they're sticking around.
JT, do you want to talk about a two-handed retrieve?
I think that's further on, but
Okay, all right.
Table that. Next, please. All right, next. Oh, here we go. Okay, so it says 7 to 9 weight rods. I would never use a 7 myself. When I caught them a couple of weeks ago when they were big, I had an 8 weight, and the next day I had a 9 and a 10 with a really large reel because my arms are getting old, and these things will beat you up. I did learn that day, never use braided backing because it acted like a spinning rod where there was no tension on the backing. When the fish took off, it just felt like miles, and it takes forever to reel in. So you want to make sure you have Dacron. On my 10 weight, I have 30 weight, so it even slows them down a little better. When there's fish blasting all around you and you've got your fish out there a half a mile, you want to get it in and release it and get another one. Large arbor reels, obviously. When they're blowing up, you can use a floating line and a 9-10 foot leader. Sink tip, I rarely use sink tips myself. I use either intermediate or floating. I find a full intermediate, it casts better in the wind. It's a little more difficult to pick up and throw again, like a floating line. Or if they move so fast that they'll be on one side of your boat, and you got to pick up and back cast to the other side in 2 seconds to catch them. Because when they come up, you want to get them right then. When they come up, they're there, and maybe they're there 3 seconds after they come up. There's a trailer or something. But they usually go like in a wolf pack, and they go back down and head somewhere else. So you got to be able to cast without a lot of false casting and just be as efficient as possible.
JT,
Yes.
When you said that you were using braid, you were using braid as backing?
Yeah, I had put some braid on years ago when fly fishing in Hawaii for bonefish because of the coral and sharp edged coral fans that they had. It's still on one reel.
But the point is, when you put the braid on, did you put some monofilament on first?
I'm not sure, but regardless.
You can't put braid on any spool. It slips. If you're going to use braid as backing, you have to start with monofilament.
Right. I'd have to look way back in there, but
yeah. If you were using just braid straight on that spool, that's disaster. You got to start with monofilament if you're going to use braid.
All right. Well, I'm advising on not using braid.
Well, it's fine to use it, but you got to start with some monofilament. That's an old bass fishing from you're putting braid on a bait caster. You have to put several loops of several turns of monofilament on first, or it'll slip.
Thanks, Michael. Okay, next.
Hold on that slide for a second. Could you go back to that, Ethan? Thank you. The full sink line, personally, I would never use, just because of the fact that it's very difficult to get that line out of the water and up in the air on your back cast and then make your forward cast with it. As JT was saying, you've got to, if you make a cast and you don't get hit, you want to get that next cast out as quick as you can. So it's basically one false cast back and shoot it. and, get it back into the fray, because otherwise they're gone. And with a
I
full
can hear
sink,
it.
I
can
just
hear
don't think you
what's
can
going on.
control it and get it up out of the water quick enough. What I like to use personally is actually an intermediate clear sink tip with a floating running line. So that the line is going to, again, be easy to take off the water and then get it out, quickly. Obviously, it's a weight forward, line. So
Earlier, right.
go ahead, JT.
Yeah, the only time I've ever used full sync to any advantage is creating a trim line with glass minnows.
Because it's echoes and stuff. We always announce at the beginning of the meeting.
TV or something. Next slide, please.
Mike's on there.
Huh?
Mike is on there.
Mike,
There, no.
Ethan, help.
Full screen again.
There we go.
All right, this stuff just goes without saying. I mean, I don't know why Nick put it in there. We all know that stuff. So next slide.
He put it in there so he'd be able to advertise his shirts.
Well, I'm wearing his buff there.
There
But
you
if you
go.
can see, these things can get 12 pounds here. And that's why I kind of put away the 8 weight when they're running that large. If they're 6 pounds, you're fine. This is a beautiful fish off of Venice a couple years ago with Rich Halbrook, one of our members. You'll see him in a little bit. Next slide, please. There's Rich there. He passed away sadly, but he was a guy fairly new to fly fishing, and he was so excited because he tied his own gummy up and caught this fish. Next, please. I think the stripping basket is up for conversation. If it's not blowing like crazy, I hate to use one. I try to go bare feet or wear my sim socks so I can feel where the line is. Because if you hook an Albie and the line touches anything, it's usually going 30 miles an hour the other direction. It's going to break the line at the fly like in a second. So if you get hung up and it's wrapped around your rod, or it's wrapped, you've touched it or your hands on it, you just got to let these things go. There's no pulling back against them while they're making their initial run. There were some funny moments in North Carolina where this guy's reel spool came off and was spinning around in the sand off the beach for about 5 minutes. A net or a gripper is pretty important. You definitely want pliers or a hemostat. We want to handle these fish very quickly because they need to be moving. And further on in this presentation, we'll show you how to release them. Tin is really light. That would have to be super bright conditions or something. I generally use 12, and it should be fluoro unless you're using a popper or a gurgler. And I would say 40 is too heavy.
Yeah.
So anywhere between 12 to 20 fluorocarbon generally works for me. All this other stuff is pretty much what goes without saying. Rain jacket, of course. Spare rods, important. These things will break rods. Bobby Popovic's had and they will also steal rods. If you have your fly dangling over the side of a boat and no one's manning it, it's just sitting there. There's been many instances where school come by and one will grab it and that rod is in the water in 2 seconds. So you have to maintain your fly and get your fly out of the water when you're not actively fishing. The stripping basket, I don't use it because I'm trying to cast so quickly, and recast. If it's super windy and you're really in trouble, I use the big leaf baskets that we've made, that fold up. Some people use I don't know if it's an Orvis product or whatever that skinny tube basket is. They work, but this is like, it's like combat fishing. You have to do really quickly. So if you're sitting there putting a line in your basket and slowly bringing it in, it's not It's not optimal, I think. Your line on the deck is better, if you can get away with it.
JT, one thing I would point out about the stripping baskets where it's really an advantage is when you're out there and sometimes, you can sit and not run and gun to the schools of fish because sometimes they'll come up, go down, then they'll come up again, maybe 20 feet or 10 feet away from where they went down and sounded. So, or they could come up on the other side of the boat. My point being that when you have a stripping basket, your line is at least contained. There's been times when I've been fishing off, let's say the port side, and all of a sudden, like 20 seconds later, a school of fish comes up on the starboard side. So if you had your line down on the deck of the boat, you'd kind of be screwed. All right. So, but if it's in the stripping basket, you can just grab the stripping basket, move to the other side of the boat and start casting right away. So there are advantages as well as certainly disadvantages.
I think it's up to the individual angler. I'm pretty adept at running around like a Chinese fire drill, not to be non-PC, but that makes sense. I like to use the bow grip or or a gripper, especially in the kayak. When you get these fish close, they're going to circle, and at one point you've got to lean back and grab some point of your leader, and then you can generally get them to come face to you to the thing and grab their lip. Take a quick picture and plunge it back in. But another thing that will happen, sometimes these fish are running so far and so fast that they'll wrap the fly line in their tails. And at that point, it'll feel kind of like dead weight, and you can just kind of pull them in. They're going backwards, and it's probably not good for their breathing, but get them in as quick as possible. A lot of times they'll tail wrap, and they're kind of incapacitated at that point.
JT, a couple other things I wanted to point out. One is with a net, try to get one that's got a long handle, because when you're bringing those fish in, they don't want to cooperate too much. They'll keep on kicking and screaming and hollering even after you've brought them up onto the boat. They are notorious for doing like a shimmer shake type of a thing. But if you have an extended handle, it's easier to net them and not lose the fish. If you have a short handled net, sometimes that's a problem. Second thing I wanted to point out is with this picture, hopefully everybody can see the person. I don't know who that is that's catching that particular fish, but if you notice where the hands are, once you set the hook into the fly, or the fly into the fish's mouth, you want to separate your hands like that person is doing, so that line does not get tangled. As JT was saying, that if the line tangles in any way, you're going to break off that fish or lose your leader and everything. So separate your hands, and also ideally put the rod tip into the water. If you're in a position where you can put your rod tip down into the water, it puts more friction on the line as the fish starts to run, and you can control that fish a little bit easier. So those are two other things I would mention.
Right, and also with the net, you want to use a rubber mesh net, not a gilling type.
Other thing there too with the way he's got it, and for me, I like having stripping fingers on, because that line, when those fish run, I mean, they'll rip a hole in your finger if you're especially if you're using any kind of textured line.
The other point I'll make,
which I hate, by the way, but
the other point I'll make at this point, I don't think it's in this presentation, is there's a lot of crab traps there, and they will run past a crab trap and then hang a right, and your line is abrasing against the crab trap. And I ruined a line pulling against the fish against the crab trap. What you have to do is just completely let the fish go to the crab trap and try to free it before you continue the battle. A lot of times they stay on, sometimes they get off, but you will ruin a line on a crab trap line that's going down to the bottom. Okay, next. There's the stripping basket. All right, next, please. Boy, that fly's just in there by a little bit.
Mhm.
So the poppers and gurglers are really good when they're blowing up. If they were not blowing up, I wouldn't have that on there. Small baitfish. I call the gummy minnow, it's kind of like cheating. It looks so much like a minnow that if I'm not catching them on anything else, I'm getting frustrated. That gummy minnow's going on immediately because it really fools them easily. Some of the gummy minnows come with a weaker hook. So I noticed CB's is selling Orvis ones now that looks like a new product to them, and they have a pretty solid hook on them. There's the clouser. I'll talk about the clouser and chumming as we get on here because it's not done that much here. I know Rick doesn't do it that much, but it's really effective up north. And when it's slow, it could really change your day. Next slide. There's Mick's Red-Headed Stepchild, Bob Popovic's Jiggy Fly. On the right, the crease fly is another really good fly, but it's also a top water when they're blowing up hard. This spinner minnow, that's Mick's thing, and I don't even think that's a fly. To tell you the truth.
Smallmouth love it up here.
Mick's not here to defend himself. But all right, next. All right, here's an Albie. A lot of times they'll spit up what they've been eating when you get them in because they're gorging themselves so much. These are all glass minnows, I think. There is a little mess of, looks like cloudy water that Rick calls snog. And I think the bait is so small and just condensed that it's really hard to imitate when they're on that. Rick, can you pontificate on that a minute? Is Rick still here? All right, let's move on.
We got to do something here. You got me?
Oh, I'm asking you about the snog.
Yeah, it's just really small glass minnows. I mean, typically I would use a number 2 or a number 4 hook, but when that's happening, sometimes you got to use well, I had to adjust to it one time earlier this season. We had to go all the way down to like a number 8 gummy minnow because the bait was so small. Actually, that was fishing docks before daylight, but a similar situation. Sometimes they're just really small.
And when they get small, they get picky, right?
Oh yeah. Well, they're always picky.
Gotcha.
They're always picky, but we're just lucky when they're eating this, the little bit larger size.
All right, next slide, please. That's Preston Jones, who used to take me out all the time. We used to have a thing called boat sharing in the club, which I sort of think we should take back. He was a pretty good fisherman, and that's in the shipping channel. I think you can see the buoy in the background. And he was a really good guy. We've lost a lot of good fishermen over time. But he loved the Albies as well. And we spent many an afternoon chasing them up and down the shipping channel.
He was a good friend of my guy out in Colorado, Daryl Dagan.
And he's got the old school bite the fly rod, which I like.
Yeah.
All right, next. All right. I don't know a lot about this because I'm not a captain, but I mean, this is pretty self-explanatory about where to set up, where the fish are coming from the left and the wind is behind you. This guy is going way too fast to be chasing Albies, but I guess that's a setup. Does that make sense, Rick?
Well, actually, he's going the right direction. What I would try to do, but not on playing like that. But
No.
what I would try to do is parallel the fish, actually trying to think where the fish are going to be rather than where they are or where they've been by watching the birds, but parallel them and try to get a perpendicular shot. That way, when you make the cast, you can move the fly. Otherwise, what happens, people make the mistake of running towards the fish and then turning the boat at the last minute when they get there, and you make a cast and you're drifting towards the fly so hard you can't move it.
Yeah, another thing is that, I don't know if it comes up in the next slide, but there's tide involved too. Sometimes I'll be out in my kayak and I'll throw the line and the fly is coming back at me with the tide and I'm not getting any strips in. So you have to change the angle based on the tide.
Yeah.
Next, please.
Bless you.
Thank you.
Yeah, so he's crossing the fish. Next. I guess when we made this, I was the guy, so. That looks like one of Ken's rental boats. I can see Ken's vest on the back there. You see how many rods we have out? There's 4, 5 of them shown. No, 3, 4, 5, yeah.
Yeah, 5.
So you just have to be kind of careful of the rod, especially the engine, getting a line in the engine. I can't tell you how many people that has happened to, including myself. When the guy moves the boat, you got to make sure all the lines are clear, or that could be an issue. Next, please. Now that's a smaller fish, so an 8-weight is going to be no problem handling him. That looks like Preston's boat with the Mini Code on there. That's also in the shipping channel.
What's in your mouth?
Looks like hemostats. Getting ready to release them. That's my secret weapon.
I thought it was a rod tip.
Kayak fishing. I don't know why it's coming that way. I go the other way. Next, please. All right, so this is a release in a kayak. And these are the kind of fish that you don't want to rub back and forth in the water. You just depth plunge them. And there's a video upcoming that'll show all kinds of angles of releasing these fish. Sometimes they just plain don't make it. They just die. But in a perfect world, you plunge, get that tail kicking, and off they go. There's Captain Stan and Fisher Rick Rosenberg. I'm not sure who that is on the right, but
like Joe Mahler.
Is
it looks
that
like
Joe?
Joe Mahler next to a sandbar. So I think he's trying to show the leaning post and the bars. When it's calm, it can be really effective because you're up and the cast is a lot easier than when you're sitting. When it's not calm, my forward leaning bar is always down. But if you can, you can put it up. Pontoons also help, depending on most of the kayaks these days are pretty standable. They're wider. The Slayer I have, the new canoes and such. I just added a trolling motor to the back of mine, which I used on the Albies, and it was awesome to see a school 75 yards away and be there in 8 seconds versus paddle. Or they got to go down, praying they're going to stay up. So that's kind of a new addition for me. Next, please. I don't really see the fish in this. It's just a picture of Mick paddle, and it looks like it is logo. Next. Oh, it's a video. Okay. So you can see how close the shore is. He's only about less than a half mile, I'd say. Sees the birds. One just blew up there. I would keep the tip lower, but
yeah,
it's not as easy to fish in a kayak. There's the hookup. So that obviously is an abbreviated battle. There's no way you get an Albie that close. That's but you see when you beat them, they come up face first. And I like to take them off the left side too, for some reason.
Have you ever had sharks come up and eat them?
I have never actually had that happen, but I'm concerned about it at times. I had one chewing on my pontoon one time. And he was just back there chewing around. I don't know what he was doing, but he was as scared as I when I saw him, little guy. So here's the plunge, I think. Let's see if he drops them in. Nope. It's in the next video. So that's a pretty beefy fly. That's a good way to cut your hand too. You got to be careful. See, if you're able to grab their tail like that, then you're in control. So that's his propeller. All right, next. Next again. All right, here's the plunging stuff. Next. Double hookup. Looks like Ken in the front. I don't know who's in the back. And then there's the fire drill, trying not to wrap lines. That's got to be Mick. He's got
That's
the.
Mick. Yeah, that's Mick and I. 'Cause that's his GoPro.
That's a really nice day. Look at the water, it's like perfect. See how that rod is bent? You got to be really careful if they go under the boat like that. They will snap a rod given a chance.
Good netting job.
Excellent.
That's a smaller one. And I think I think Ken plunges it in or something. No, maybe it's here. See how you kind of raise it up? And just shoot him in like a missile. Professional quality underwater shot there.
One thing I'll mention, if you're new to this game, make sure you've got a large arbor reel, because they'll take off and they'll go out maybe, 80 to 100 yards sometimes on a run, but then it can turn around and come right back at you. So you've got to be able to take up line real fast. So, if you're going to go after these guys, try to have a large arbor reel. There's Sam.
That's a good shot of him going into the water. See his tail's going. He's going to make it.
Look at the follow through.
All right, next. This is something Mick put in. I don't know if you guys want to take a snapshot of this. Most everyone has enough things to figure out what's going on. I don't see wind finder in there, which I use a lot to see what's going on with the wind and the tides.
Yeah, that's one of the main ones I use is wind finder and sail flow, and then tides.net on the tides.
All right, Nick, is there anything else? Okay, let's go back to Zoom. Okay, so there we go. So that's most of the presentation. A couple of things I wanted to add. If you haven't done this, you need to do it. It's some of the most fun I've ever had fly fishing for any species. Rick Grassett, who was nice enough to join us today, is a wonderful guide. He knows exactly what he's doing. If you don't have a boat and you want to get out there, hire Rick. And he's super nice guy, super chill, and really a top guide in the area and has been forever. I met him in North Carolina at a gas station years back when we were both fishing up there. I didn't even know who he was. It was kind of funny.
Calico Jack.
What?
Calico Jack.
Yeah, Calico Jack and Harker's Island.
Yeah.
And so this is the time, tie flies, get your leaders ready, and get set, because I think next week could be.
Hey, Jay, we got a question. Up north, are they called Bonita, or are they very similar to Bonita?
That's one thing I had written down. So this is a false albacore. They call them little tunny a lot, Tunney. In Florida, they're mostly known as bonito, but up north we have the Atlantic bonito, which is a similar fish, but it's actually an eating fish, and it's all striped, and they're a little smaller in general, but they're also just as much fun and maybe a little tougher to actually catch.
Someone raised the question about two-handed stripping, and we never got back to it.
I'll take that. So the fly needs to be moving pretty quickly. You saw in that one video, Mick trying to one-hand strip as fast as he could, and you could hook up like that. I generally throw that intermediate, full intermediate clear line out, as far as I can. I'll put the rod under my arm and I'll double strip, because the fish are moving really fast and the bait is trying to escape really fast. And that I've had a lot better results personally doing that. I don't know how many people do it. If you're going to do a popper in the middle of blowing up fish, I would use a one-handed retrieve, get that thing to move a little bit. There's nothing more fun than watching them take top water, though. So you see the fish come up and grab it, and it's just super exciting. Little small gurglers, creased flies, even little poppers I've used in the past.
JT, I spent part of the day today. I tied up some flies. There's a website that Al actually told me about called Sydney, SYDNEY, like the Sydney, Australia, flyfishing.com. There's a YouTube presentation. And this gentleman, he ties his gummy minnows using 3M double-sided tape. And it's a very ingenious, quick, and easy method. And I don't know if you'll be able to see these real well or not, but I tied up a bunch of them today. And here's one on a size 8, like Rick was talking about, a snog, if you want to get into the small ones. And basically it's using the 3M double-sided tape. You put on a little bit of weight if you want, or unweighted. Put a little bit of body, like a little bit of body braid on there. Get the eyes on after you use the double-sided tape. And then you get the double-sided tape stuck over. And then once that's done, you put like nail polish. I like to use nail polish that has little flecks in it called disco ball. And it gives it kind of a look of like the scales on a so that's a small version. And then
and show the tail of that fly. So after the tape is folded over, you have to trim it on an angle.
Trim it, right. You trim it by hand.
Ken looks like he's using a saw on that one, but you want to use a sharp scissor.
Sharp scissors. And then I tied up some bigger ones. These are on size 6 hooks, and I use a double-sided tape, but then I also put on
Hold it up, Ken.
that silky skin I bought over at the compound on top, and then you don't have to put a top coat on it. The reason you put the top coat on, obviously the double-sided, is because it's sticky without it. So you got to put the top coat on, let it dry, and usually put on a second coat. But they're simple and easy. It takes me about, I don't know, 3 minutes to tie a fly, 4 minutes. And these will work on Albies really, really well.
Yeah, that's a good point, because I've tried to do it the professional method with the silly skin or whatever. That's
That's-
your
yeah.
finger, and the fly's tail is kind of at a big angle and it won't strip well.
Right, right.
I don't know how those Kenyans do it, but they make them nice.
Yeah, so look that YouTube video up again, sydneyflyfishing.com. And it's like about a 4 or 5 minute presentation. And the guy does a good job of explaining it. If you want to tie, it's simple and easy.
Yeah, if you go to YouTube and you put in gummy minnow Sydney, it'll go right to that YouTube.
Okay.
And you don't have to go to the .com. I've tied a couple of them, and I'm a lousy tire, and I've got some eye issues, but they end up looking like minnows. They look like those crazy minnows, and they are easy to tie. And I guess Jay, I guess Ken and I, have to buy about 6 foot of this tape, and you use 1 inch at a time. So if you're interested, you can drop by and I'll.
No, that's cool. That's pretty much it. If there's any other questions, when we did this live, there was a lot of questions about tippet and rods and stuff. I think we've gone over that fairly well.
I have a question for Rick and JC. I have a time of day. Do you guys base the time you go out on this lunar table? Obviously dawn to dusk, but is there a time of day that you prefer to go, or do you look at this lunar table at all?
I don't look at this. I don't look at the lunar table so much as I do tide, but also it's a time of day thing. Usually, often the fish will go down in the middle of the day. Sometimes if you've got a good tide, they won't. But usually it's more. It's better earlier unless it's overcast, and then it may go into the all day long.
Yeah, I like to get out if I'm kayaking the beach, 9:30. Want the sun to be up a little bit, and it's kind of the opposite of tarpon. And yeah, sometimes they'll just be on for a couple hours and then they'll disappear, and then either go take a nap or the wind will pick up generally and they'll be done. A couple of years back, the last time we had them really good, they were up on Longboat from north of Buttonwood on down to the those like concrete pillars in the water, and they must have been there a good week or 10 days every day, just solid. You remember that, Rick? You had customers. We were out there.
Yeah.
If we could get something like that and the bait stays there, that's the perfect scenario for us.
Yeah, the perfect scenario is if the water temperature drops slowly and the bait stays here a long time, because the fish will move with the bait. As it cools down, the bait will go south and the fish will.
Yeah, and it's not like where they are, because we don't really have like a hotline of it's one thing that kind of lacks around here is there's not like a hotline of where to go. So I call some of my guide friends, and I know if anyone wants to call me, and I know they're in Nokomis, I'll be happy to tell you. It's a big ocean. It's not as since these fish aren't really good eating, the spin fishing guys either can't catch them or don't bother with them. So it's more of our game, which is nice. And
Sure.
It's not uberly crowded. Most people on the water are very courteous. You'll get a troll there every now and troll right through the school like an idiot. But, for the most part, we generally have it to ourselves. Most of my YouTube videos are me and 1 or 2 other guys just out there playing all day. So that's a good thing.
Hey, Jay.
Sounds good.
On that fly you tied at the beginning, was that a pure white, or did it have some pearlescence or any kind of flash in it?
I think they all have for lessons. The one I'm using is called anadromous or something.
Monogamous or something. Yeah.
But I think most of his brushes have it. The minnow brush also has a flash,
Okay.
which is this one.
Okay.
As long as it's white, or I've tried some silver ones with less success.
Yeah,
Let me
too much
get back
flash is no good.
Let me get back to the point about chumming. So in North Carolina, there's a place called Cape Hatteras, not Cape Hatteras, Cape Lookout, and it's like the mecca for Albie fishing in late October, November. And when it was slow, and there was a tide, we would actually get the fish. We would take a block of glass minnows, which they sell at West Marine and stuff, throw them in a bucket, and try to get them to get behind the boat by throwing out a small handful, creating a line. Sometimes you get them to come right to the back of the boat and just sit there. And I mean, I remember one day with Bill Hallboats, I actually cut the hook off my fly because they were 12-pound fish. We were catching so many, they were just, they were right behind the boat, and they were just killing me.
Cheating.
It's cheating, whatever. So is a gummy minnow. But other times the bait ball, the brown bait ball of bait would actually run under somebody's boat and stay there, and to hide from the Albies, and the Albies would come and pick them off, and all the other boats would gather around, and there'd be flies bouncing off the guy's boat or whatever, and it was all a good fun, But that's what I was going to mention. At times, you can actually idle up to a bait ball and kill your motor, and they'll all run under the boat, and then you'll have your own fishery for as long as they stay there, or they stay alive. But it's not often.
Two points I'd like to bring up regarding equipment. One is when you go out, and you remember that JT was counting the number of rods we had on the boat that one time, on that one slide. Have a rod that you can fish mackerel with a little bit of wire on it, because even when the Albies stop, there's almost always mackerel around, and they'll pretty much hit all day long. So you can spend an hour or so out there and catch a bunch of mackerel, and just have some fun fishing. Second thing because I learned this the hard way, I would bring out is check your backing before you get into this game. What I do now is I'll wrap my line around a post with the hook, take the hook of the fly and make sure it's cinched there, walking back, and draw go almost like 200 yards, and really put some pressure on my backing, because one time I went out and I had some backing that probably I hadn't changed in years and years, and it dried out, and I ended up losing my whole rig. I mean, my line and everything. Had a nice fish on, all of a sudden pop, and so the backing is pretty important when you're fishing for Albies, because you'll get into the backing almost every single time. So make sure it's not going to let go.
The other good reason to do that is because sometimes that backing will underwrap,
Right.
and it just won't move because it's underwrapped itself and it's stuck. And at that point, you're going to break the fish off. So not a bad idea, Ken, at all.
Mhm.
So I have a question probably for Rick, maybe for Ken, and it has to do with when you pull up to a school in your boat, do you leave the motor on or do you turn it off?
I kill my engine as soon as I can.
I think I usually kill mine also, but I think you can probably leave it run if it's a 4-stroke, especially if you're staying a cast away from the fish. I think in and out of gear or on and off is probably more of an issue than either on continuously or off. You definitely don't want to get too close to the fish with the motor running, but.
Okay, thanks. I had heard it both ways, so.
Rick, I know that one of the times I was out with you, you used your trolling motor to get into the last, 20 or 30 feet to close the gap. You suggest using a trolling motor if you have one?
Talking about for Albies or for triple
For
tail?
Albies.
No, I don't think you can react quick enough with a trolling motor, or at least in my setup with a stern mount trolling motor, I can't or wouldn't want to try. I do that for triple tail.
Yeah.
But the last time I was out for triple tail, conditions were so bad that we couldn't make it work with the trolling motor. And well, you were there.
I was there.
Should be done
So
soon.
yeah, so we were able to make it work with the outboard. But
Right.
typically I don't use the trolling motor for the Albies. They're just moving too quick.
Well,
I typically don't.
I've got a new Torpedo motor, and the sound of it is completely different than a regular trolling motor. When I was out in front of Nokomis, I found it pretty handy in getting up on the stools and then killing it. And
The name of it, JT?
Sorry?
What was the name of it?
Torpedo. It's a German motor. It's rear mounted, and I think it's going to be big difference maker for me than pedaling or paddling after these fish. And it also depends on how long they stay up and how many are there. You know, sometimes they're up and down. Sometimes they're up for quite a while, and you could, film them. It just depends on what's going on with the fish, I think. A lot of frustration chasing the fish around sometimes. Sometimes they're just up. I've got a video of Longboat where they look like trout taking dry flies. They're just really calm, easy to get on top of, not spooky. I think the motor will spook them if you run and gun at them a lot, of drive them down, the regular motor.
Any other
Thanks,
questions?
guys.
I'd like to take just a quick moment to welcome back any of the snowbirds that had been up north and are now back down here with us. And certainly want to wish everybody a healthy and happy Thanksgiving. And one other last thing is congrats goes out to Craig. He's now a member of the executive committee of FFI here in the state of Florida. We had our FFI board meeting yesterday, and he was elected, selected, nominated, and voted in as one of the members of the executive committee. So I don't know if Craig's on or not. I haven't seen his face, but I just wanted to thank him. And then the last thing is, Ethan, did you want to mention anything about the kayak shop?
Still working with them.
Okay.
But news to come. I thought we might want to have Lynn say a little something about the February trip.
Yeah.
Sure, thanks.
Hey, Gary.
This would be the Alligator Alley trip, and we've reserved 20 rooms. And check your inbox tomorrow. There's a letter which has all the information and how to sign up and how to reserve a room. And we're going back to Alligator Alley. So check your inbox tomorrow.
I didn't see it.
What's that?
Goes out tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
Oh, okay.
Thanks to Ethan. He's sending it out for me.
I hope I get down there for that. Last year was the first year I did that, and that was so much fun. I couldn't even stand it.
Well, we're looking forward to it.
And as a precursor to Alligator Alley, Jim secured a gentleman, Chris Dirksen, to speak next month on the 17th, same time, 7 o'clock. He's going to be talking about the 3 of his favorite tidal creeks on the western side of Alligator Alley, the Faca Union, the East River, and Halfway Creek. So it's going to be a really good presentation. We're really excited about it. I'm really glad Jim found this guy. And apparently he outfishes Jim Cannon on a regular basis.
Whoa, that's saying something.
He uses a spinning rod.
Oh, he cheats, huh? He's on the dark side.
He fly fishes in Colorado. Colorado, he lives on the Arkansas River in the summertime, then he fly fishes. When he comes back here, he fishes a lot with friends here. But he's still a good guy.
You'll still call him a friend, right?
How's the baby tarpon fishing in those creeks?
They are
So,
there sometimes. You know how that is.
Sometimes yes, sometimes no. The wind she blow, the tarpon no bite.
Yeah,
so
he's
we're
got
pretty
a
excited
um,
One more plug for the caravan, December 4th to the fly shops.
JT,
Yeah,
next year, if we go to Alligator Alley, you might want to make sure you get all your stuff fastened.
oh yeah, leave it in the boat, right? I ended up using a lot of that gear this year, so Bob, whatever his name is, had done me a real solid. We're not sure how we're gonna be able to meet this year with COVID as far as like a group at night and things. But we'll just have to play it by ear and see. Hopefully there'll be a vaccine by then or something.
I guess it'll be March or April before we meet.
Along that line, folks, I've got everything set up with the garden club from January on, just in case. But obviously, I told them that, as Al just said, probably realistically March, April. But I reserved all the times. We only had 1 month, and I can't remember which one it was off the top of my head. I'm thinking it was February, where we had to move it up 1 week because of the garden flower show. But other than that, we have our 4th Wednesday all the way through. So, that worked out.
And also, if you know guys that are not joining the Zoom meetings that you can mention to them, hey, we're doing the meetings by Zoom. It's pretty cool. Maybe give them a soft nudge. It'd be great to have other people. If that other club wasn't meeting tonight, I'm sure we would have got a couple of them as well. So I have kind of opened it up to other clubs, my friends. You can invite anybody you like that's interested in fishing.
Ethan, how many do we end up with today?
Tonight we had 23.
23? Okay.
Mhm.
All right. Anything else for the good of the order, or are we all set?
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, JD. Thank you, Ken.
Oh.
Thank you, Rick.
Thank you.
Putting that together. Thank you, Mick, wherever
Yeah.
you are.
Mick, wherever you are. Mick had to work tonight, so that's why he couldn't be with us.
Hey, thank God he had that PowerPoint though.
That's
All right,
right.
people, see you
And
later.
I'll just
All right.
hang on to that stuff I brought back from Missoula.
Okay, super.
Have a good evening, everyone.
Thanks,
Yeah.
guys.
Get
Thanks.
your picks in. Get your picks into the tournament.
I've been sending you some.